You know that feeling when you spend a few $100 on a budget 1440p ultrawide, only to discover the colors look flat, the motion feels muddy and you end up wishing you'd saved a little more for something that actually delivers? I've been there, and the regret of a cheap shortcut sticks around longer than the excitement of the unboxing. That's why I wanted to see if the ASUS ROG Strix 34-inch QD-OLED monitor feels like a smarter buy, or if it's just another premium price tag with the same old trade-offs. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's start with the basics of who this screen is really built for. If you spend most of your gaming time in fast-paced shooters, competitive esports titles, or you edit HDR video on a tight deadline, you'll notice the difference the 175Hz refresh and the 0.03 milliseconds response time make. The monitor pushes frames fast enough that you can actually see the difference between a 144Hz and a 175Hz cycle when you're tracking a flickering sniper crosshair. In my own setup, I paired it with a RTX 4090 and the game's frame count never dipped below 150 frames per second, which kept the motion crisp and the input lag barely perceptible. For a creator, the QD-OLED panel's 99.3% DCI-P3 coverage and true 10-bit color means you can grade footage and trust the blacks are real, not just a dimmed gray. The HDR 400 compliance brings out detail and bright highlights without crushing shadow, something a regular LCD just can't mimic. But that same level of fidelity comes with a set of practical expectations. First, you need the horsepower. The monitor is 34401440 at up to 175 Hz, which means a decent GPU has to push roughly 100 million pixels per second. If you're still on a mid-range card, you'll quickly hit the frame rate ceiling and the experience will feel choppy, negating the whole point of a high refresh screen. In short, this is not a plug-and-play upgrade for a modest PC. The OLED panel itself is the star, but it also brings the usual OLED caveats. I've noticed a slight risk of burn-in if static UI elements stay on screen for hours. Think of a chat window or a constantly open toolbar. ASUS tries to mitigate that with its OLED CarePro sensor that detects proximity and dims certain zones when you step away, which is a clever touch, but it's still a habit you have to manage. If you're the kind of user who leaves a game HUD up for days on end, you'll want to keep an eye on that. Ergonomics are another hidden trade-off. The stand offers tilt, swivel and height adjustments, but the range isn't as deep as some premium IPS panels that let you go into a near-flat position. In a cramped desk, the monitor's 34-inch width already eats up a lot of real estate, and the VESA mount is the only way to get a true ergonomic setup if you have a sit-stand desk. The extra weight of the OLED panel also means the stand feels a bit top-heavy, so you'll need a sturdy desk or a wall mount. Now, what does the software side bring to the table? ASUS bundles the DisplayWidget Center application, which sits in the taskbar and lets you switch between HDR profiles, calibrate color, and even toggle the AI-powered extreme low motion blur mode with a single click. In practice, I found the AI mode useful for fast-paced shooters because it slightly sharpens moving edges without introducing halo artifacts. The AI also predicts optimal refresh rates based on the game's detected frame output, which is handy if you're juggling between a 60Hz narrative RPG and a 170Hz battle royale. It's a modest convenience, not a game-changing feature, but it does shave a few seconds off the usual menu hopping. If you're a content creator who needs accurate color, the monitor's 10-bit pipeline and the ability to toggle HDR 400 on the fly make it a solid workstation. The panel's contrast ratio feels like looking at a real black screen, shadows stay true, and the highlight roll-off is smooth. I edited a 4K HDR YouTube video on this screen and the grading tools matched the on-screen output within a margin of error that would have required a separate colorimeter on a cheaper panel. On the flip side, the price tag is a hard reality. At its current retail price, the Strix sits comfortably in the high-end segment, and you'll have to justify the expense to anyone who asks why your monitor costs more than a mid-range laptop. If you're a casual gamer who mostly plays slower, single-player titles, or you use your PC mainly for browsing and office work, you'll probably get more bang for your buck with a 27-inch IPS 1440p or even a 32-inch VA panel that hits 144 Hz. Those alternatives won't have the perfect blacks, but they'll still deliver a smooth experience for everyday tasks without the OLED care vigilance. Another practical consideration is cable management. To hit the full 175 Hz at 34401440, you need a DisplayPort 1.4 cable that supports the bandwidth. The monitor's bundled cable is adequate for 144 Hz.